Today, we're diving into the absolutely incredible life of Luang Por Kasem. He was a man born a prince in Thailand, literally destined for a life of wealth and luxury, who made a choice that's almost impossible to imagine. He chose to live in a cemetery. It's the question at the very heart of his story, isn't it? A journey from the absolute peak of society to an existence that most of us can't even fathom. To really understand how that happened, well, we have to go right back to the beginning.
You see, to get a handle on the monk he became, you first have to understand the prince he was born as. And this wasn't just any royal birth. People believed it was an event that was actually foretold by prophecy.
So picture this. He was born into the noble house of Lampong in northern Thailand. His name was Chao Kasem Na Lampong. And get this, he was the great-grandson of the last ruling prince of the entire region. That means a life of privilege, of status, of comfort. It was all just his birthright.
And here is where the story takes this legendary turn. It was said that the most famous monk of that era, a man named Kruba Srivachai, had prophesied that a Ton Bun, which means a person of immense spiritual merit, was about to be born in that very city. For a lot of people, there was just no doubt who he was talking about.
So you've got the royal lineage, you've got this amazing prophecy hanging over him, and as a young man, turns out he also had a brilliant mind. But he was about to make a decision that would just defy every single expectation.
He joined the monkhood, and right away it was obvious he was a prodigy. By the time he was just 24, he'd already passed the highest level of Buddhist scriptural exams. I mean, that's a huge deal. It basically put him on the fast track to becoming a major leader, a position of real power and influence in the religious world.
And this just lays it out so clearly, the crossroads he was standing at. On one side, you have the life everyone expected him to live, a comfortable, prestigious job as the abbot of a huge temple. And on the other side, a path of total renunciation, a path of hardship, of solitude, of deep uncertainty. He was offered the first path, but his heart chose the second.
And then he just walked away. After being appointed abbot, a role with so much prestige, he just couldn't stand all the worldly duties that came with it. So one day, he vanished. He left nothing behind but a simple letter of resignation and set off to find a life of pure spiritual practice.
Okay, this is where his story goes from being just remarkable to truly legendary. He didn't just go off to a quiet forest somewhere. No, he chose a place that most people actively fear, a cemetery. He devoted himself to something called ukrit practice. Now, this isn't your average meditation retreat. This is the most severe, most extreme form of asceticism you can imagine. The whole idea is that by stripping away every single comfort and confronting every single fear, you can push your mind and body to their absolute limits, and maybe, just maybe, see reality with perfect clarity.
And just look at what this really meant. He would meditate right in front of burning funeral pyres, just to contemplate death head-on. He'd sit through blistering sun, pouring rain, freezing nights, all without shelter. He would only eat what people gave him, even if the food had gone bad, all to train his mind to let go of physical desire. And maybe the most incredible thing, he often refused to lie down, choosing to sleep sitting up or crouched.
For decades, his home was the Susan Trelak Cemetery. And the purpose behind it was so profound. He wanted to directly confront the core Buddhist idea of anicca, or impermanence. He believed that by literally living among the dead, he could finally understand the fleeting, temporary nature of life itself.
Well, as you can imagine, word of this prince-turned-ascetic living in a graveyard started to spread. People were just drawn to his incredible devotion, and with that fame came stories of extraordinary events that many saw as the fruits of his intense practice.
The reverence for him was just immense, and it cut across all society. We're talking from poor villagers who would bring him scraps of food, all the way up to the most powerful person in the entire country, the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who actually visited him personally more than once just to pay his respects.
But maybe the most famous story, the one that really captures the sheer power of his mind, came late in his life. After all those decades of extreme practices, especially never lying down, his body finally started to pay the price. He needed a major, very complex operation on his spine.
And this part is just astounding. 0. When it came time for the surgery, he refused all anesthetic. No painkillers, nothing. He simply told the surgeons to go ahead while he entered a deep state of meditation. The doctors later reported that he showed absolutely no signs of pain through the entire thing. So as his fame grew, People started making amulets in his name. They became wildly popular and brought in massive donations. But he kept none of it, not a single cent. Every last bit was immediately given away to build hospitals, fund the schools, and create public works for communities. He owned absolutely nothing.
So we come to the end of his life. But as you're about to see, it's not the end of his story. His final act was, well, maybe his most mysterious of all.
After a long, long life of just unparalleled devotion, he passed away in 1996. He was 83 years old, and he left behind this legacy of absolute selflessness and spiritual dedication.
And you might think, okay, that's the end. But it's not. Something incredible was discovered after his death. His physical body, it never decomposed. To this very day, it lies in a glass coffin at the cemetery where he practiced, perfectly preserved, without any artificial help at all. For his followers, it's the final, undeniable proof of his sainthood.
And this was his wisdom, really, just boiled down to its simplest form. A simple instruction on how to find peace, not through some complex philosophy, but through mastering your own mind.
Which really just leaves us with a final question to think about. In a world that is constantly telling us to get more money, more status, more stuff, what can we possibly learn from a prince who chose to have nothing, and in doing so, seemed to gain everything?